There's no value there, it's like it's abstract and arbitrary.
I hope that Wilcox is actually recording this piece too, because honest to God, that's like a good soundbite in and of itself. Jeez Louise.
Whenever you want.
Oh, that's hilarious. All right, well, thank you. Great. Well, I don't know if we need to do like a formal intro or anything, but
whatever you think, buddy.
Yeah, if folks haven't seen me before, I'm Alex Wykoff, and I'm the director of product at WRST Collabs, and I have with me my good friend Dylan. Do you want me to say your full name? Like I've always seen like multiple manifestations of your name. You're Thomas Dylan Daniel. You're Dylan. You're Epic Dylan. Yeah. Some people call you Tater Salad.
Some people call me Mud. But so the proper naming architecture for this human is just Dylan. I put my whole name on the books.
Yeah.
Because it just seems more official.
Yeah.
And it also seems like. There's only one other Thomas Dylan Daniel that I know of.
Yeah.
And I know that because he's an academic researcher. And so like there's all these papers that he's written that I'm always getting tagged in on academia.edu because we have the same name. But that's only one instance of that problem.
Yeah.
If I went by Tom or Dylan or Daniel,
how many of them are there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I run into a similar problem with Alex Wykoff, believe it or not. There's one other Alex Wykoff, and she's like maybe 10 years or so younger than me. And so we're always fighting with each other for the Alex Wykoff handle on different social media channels. But at least I have the ENS address for now, unless she outbids me.
Yeah. Until
totally
one day. I think people will care about this stuff like a lot more sometime soon.
Yeah.
But right now I can still get Epic Dylan everywhere. So
totally.
Yeah, that's kind of like that's the one that I do if Dylan's already taken, basically. So
nice. So let's kind of rewind the whole clock and get all the way back to like your start in crypto. Like where did you get your feet wet in crypto?
Okay. There's a social media network called Cint.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get into writing. And so what I did was I started posting to this social network. And I was posting things like poems and art and writing form, literature. They were doing a lot of art, but most of the writing was about the art at that point. And I was actually able to release a novel I had written and a bunch of cool stuff like that.
Which novel was that?
It was called A Murder in the Silicon Hills.
Oh,
It's just a super cheesy murder mystery. Like
nice.
I don't. It was fun. It was just kind of a for fun like novel type of book. But yeah, I think I may have been one of the first people to do that there. We had a pretty active poetry community for a while.
Yeah.
But the thing that happened that was, so significant for me was that I learned what Ethereum was.
Yeah.
And I learned what an NFT was. And I started meeting like just all of these people. Shout out to Easy and Crypto for sure.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, he was on the first
Easy.
podcast. Yeah.
And also shout out to Cam, right? Cam
Especially
Ajazi for
Cam.
Cent. My goodness.
I met Katie here yesterday.
Katie Geminder was just here last night. Yes. Yeah. It was really fascinating, that whole idea that's at the heart of it, right? About like empowering any kind of creator to have a chance to make some kind of an income. I think that there's something really right about that, like really pushing against the narrative of the starving artist or the the kind of like the underappreciated artist.
Yeah.
And just offset in the green room earlier, we were kind of talking about how you've had this like migration in your writing path, right? So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Of course, I'd be happy to. So I started off my writing path in life as an essayist, and I actually won a competition in high school. I had a perfect essay, so that was really cool. But I kind of got away from writing for a while and then kind of found it again in university studying philosophy. And I got my grad degree and was doing like really technical writing for a long time. I've written a patent, I've written a bunch of white papers, and so I write a bunch of goofy stuff, but a lot of serious stuff and kind of everything in between at this point. And the only problem that all of it has in common is that none of it is worth money today. I mean, it's just so silly because, I don't know. I don't understand why the book market is the way it is. I feel like it just underserves the authors categorically.
Right.
And so, like there is this new market and Cint kind of is leading the way. But we've created the Page DAO, and the idea with the Page DAO is that we just want to empower specifically authors.
Right.
And we want to make books cheaper, more available, and more accessible for readers.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that like, as you're doing, patents, and R&D, right? Mm-hmm. And then you've also done a bit of philosophy, right?
A lot of philosophy.
The Mask of Ganymede, is that one of them? Would you consider that a philosophy book?
I would, and I would say that it's not a technical philosophy book. It's more of like an illustrative philosophy book, and what it illustrates is like sort of the Greek virtues, you know, and like we kind of played with, you know, those notions, and got in there for that. Yeah,
and then of course your more popular work is Bring Back Satire, right?
I think that's actually still my best-selling book, oddly enough. Yeah. It hasn't exactly been flying off the charts, but Cam picked up the one of one for it, so maybe there's like, you know, collectors are not quite as interested because there's a competing token out there with the same stuff in it. It was a great experiment, and it just continues to be.
Totally. And so as you were kind of doing that, then you also had like a handful of writings that you were doing in Scent, and that's where you started to notice attention happening, right? Like that was that, if I understand it correctly, like your writing path as you move from SES to PageDAO, the reason why crypto crept up into it at all was because you were doing some writing in crypto, and you were noticing the audience actually like literally paying attention, both in terms of like their gray matter attention, but also monetarily, right?
Yeah, so I contributed creatively to the Sync community by posting my thoughts and philosophy and stuff, a bunch of bad poems, and people appreciated it, and so they would tip me in Ethereum. And so I had to figure out what Ethereum was. And that was kind of this starting, you know, cascade moment, you know, the first domino maybe. Because once I figured out what Ethereum was, I just couldn't get enough of crypto. You know, I mean, it's like the coolest baseball card in the world, you know, like what ERC20 token are you trading today?
Right.
And people love it. So I was able to kind of shift gears from the more heavy technical philosophical stuff I'd been doing that had, you know, there were people that were interested in it,
right?
But they weren't very numerous. So I kind of added a spoke to the hub there, you know, and started writing about crypto on the regular, just whatever my thoughts were. Most of it was wrong, you know. It's probably not worth looking at, but I wrote that book Crypto over the course of 2021,
right?
And it's basically all my articles about crypto. So there's actually an NFT book of that. It's one of the Genesis NFT books.
Totally. Yeah. So 2020 to 2021 is a really good time to talk about, I think. That right about that time, I got introduced to you via our friend Lisa, right? And I think that you and Lisa got to know each other through
that guy right there.
So there's a man just off stage, and he is
Josh Quintana. He's awesome. He's a tech guy. Basically, what I was introduced to a DAO as, I used to refer to as a Quintana machine after him, actually, because he was building these communities of people that had these mission-oriented kind of approaches to life. And the idea was you create something, you know, it doesn't matter necessarily what, it doesn't need to be good. You get together and you make stuff because it's fun.
Right.
You know?
Totally. So. Before you got into DAOs proper, you at least had a Discord where a bunch of us random nerds were talking about cryptocurrency and what's interesting, what projects are actually like doing something cool. Right. There was some discussion about price, but I think there was also a lot of reasonable discussion about like who's actually building cool stuff.
That was the goal. It was the strategy was to try to buy the best tech because it would appreciate, and it worked pretty well. But I've kind of decided that maybe the market isn't as logical as it could be.
For sure.
Because the tech gets better and better and better, and if you look at the prices right now, they are not.
Yes, that's for sure.
Everybody laughs about it. It's great. You know?
It's you know, you have to, because it's otherwise it's nonsense, and you know you can't take it. Yeah, exactly. You'll cry otherwise. As we were in that particular Discord, I think that's when we started talking about some different things. You had already had kind of a stable of writers, right?
I had friends, people I was friends with.
Totally.
But so some of them were trying to break into crypto and write about that, which was kind of like the game that I had kind of learned at that point. And so I was kind of teaching people the trick, you know, and so, we built up a little bit of a group. There were a number of different people there that I guess aren't really that close to the project anymore, but it was a great learning experience.
It was a super learning experience. And I think what was really fun for me, especially being early in this group, is I'd made this little like side quest where I was hanging out in Clubhouse a little bit more, too much than was probably healthy for me. But I ended up in the room about nothing. and then ended up being like in that first wave of folks who were like filling out those public accessible Google Sheets for artists for this thing that ultimately became Rare Pizzas and the Pizza DAO. And that's where I brought it back to you, and I was like, hey man, you got to check out this weird art project. Like,
thank you. Thank you so much for doing that. Like that impulse on your part, like, changed my life forever again.
you know, at first I felt bad because I was like, man, we're taking attention away from like the main mission, which is about Page DAO, and what's this pizza thing? Maybe it's nothing. Maybe there just is a waste of time and like a random art project. Who cares? But ultimately, look at Pizza DAO, where they're at, and then especially look at like all of the alumni and where they've gone on to, right?
Oh yeah.
Like what are some projects that you can think of that the alumni have gone on to?
Definitely Vaynerchuk Media. I believe Cray Train went there. Crypto Voxels for sure. Was a Pizza DAO person who went there.
It's a BitPixie, right?
Yeah. Shout out to her. She's awesome.
She's really cool.
And then there's just so many, I can't hardly even list them all. Strawberries.
Strawberries WTF. He moved, because he made so much money in crypto, he moved from Philly to LA.
Oh, wow.
And I just got to see him the other, like, couple weeks ago when I picked up my puppy.
Nice.
I got a puppy from a breeder that was living out that way. So I flew out, got to meet him in, like, North Hollywood. But, like, life-changing event for him, right? Where, you know, I was the one that was showing him on GitHub how to, like, handle commits on GitHub. And now he's like literally building his own Game Boys and like getting his own games on Game Boys and stuff. That's his own talent, right? But like, it was really awesome to be in that community with him, you know?
Oh, it's just so much fun. I mean, it's like you take all the tech people and all the art people and you put them together, and the thing that comes out is like so much cooler than anybody could have possibly predicted. You
Absolutely.
know? It's emergent.
I would love to get your perspective on like the early days of Pizza DAO. Like, what was your impression of those first moments? Yes.
I mean, one of the most salient impressions that formed in my mind during that time was there was an artist, and she called me on Discord, and we were like talking on the phone, and she was just hysterical. Yeah. She was convinced this was the end of world hunger, and you know, like I felt that way too. You know, I was equally as excited, but I just remember being like, wow, like I don't remember any occasion in my life at this point where somebody has called me, a stranger on the internet, and just been this excited about anything. You know, I mean, like it was kind of like an eye-opening moment. You know, it's like you have to reflect on that a little bit and just think about, like, you know, what is it that is so exciting? You know, yeah.
I think for me, I saw a lot of different things that impacted the way that I work as a professional, even outside of like, you know, fun for funsies art projects.
Sure.
In one, like, I think the two major takeaways I had was, one, that pseudonymity is a really powerful thing to like break down the typical gates that hold back talent.
Absolutely. So
shout out to our friend Crypto Spaces, who went from Pizza DAO over to Oniforce, and he did that with Strawberries, but like nobody knew where Crypto Spaces came from. Nobody knew their gender identity or their ethnicity or their English language proficiency or anything. All that mattered was the output of their work.
That's right.
And I think that there's something really powerful about that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think, would it be fair to say that the trustless nature of transactions that are stored on blockchains maybe impacted that? I think so, yeah. Yeah,
I think that's like that fundamental philosophy that goes all the way back to the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper, right? That speaks to the trustless nature of the space. It's a double-edged sword, unquestionably, because of course there's been scams, there's been like repeat offenders, right, because of that. But at the same time, I feel like it's also empowered a lot of people who would have never have gotten the shot in a traditional market.
That's right.
You know? I think that's such a game changer. It really blows my mind. And as somebody who really cares deeply about like equality and being able to like let a lot of people participate, I think that was really a game changer for me.
I completely concur.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, so on the subject of DAOs and kind of like where they come from and what's important about them, you know, they're like a means to organize people, and they're similar to corporations in a lot of ways, but they do have this trustless component to them. And so what it makes possible is for a group of people to come together who are from any part of the world and do work and know that there is ongoing stuff around that, and some of that could be compensation, some of that could be recognition, some of that could be connections for, your professional life or whatever the case may be. But the whole thing with, a DAO being different from a corporation comes back to the on-chain root of the DAO in like a really, really deep way, which is kind of a fun thing to unpack. I've been like thinking through that for a few days, and one of the things that kind of comes to mind is that it's not possible to do a corporation this way, because in a corporation you have equity, and what equity is it's a token of the ownership of that company, and is basically the means to control the company by voting as a shareholder. And what you're doing when you participate in that is you're participating in a super intelligence, which is just an intelligence like any other, but instead of one human body, you have many human bodies. And so if this is the organizational goal to which corporate governance or nonprofit or even maybe government or whatever the structure may be in the old world, with respect to just kind of pre-Bitcoin, pre-on-chain, pre-trustlessness, then what you get in the new world when you put in some of those same things is actually quite a bit different. Because were you doing the Rare Pizzas thing for profit? I know I wasn't.
I was doing it because for me, I come from a tech background, and if anybody looked at my LinkedIn, they never would have given me the shot to open up Procreate on my iPad. And now I'm a commercially successful artist because and my art is on the box. Now, thanks to Shrimp, shout out Shrimp. But it was one of those things where there was nobody there to tell me no.
Right.
And there was nobody there to tell me I'm not an artist or that I'm not good enough. And so what I did was I hustled and put in my work and made the best art that I could make. I'm no Renoir, but hey, I did okay. And there it is. It's on the blockchain forever. And it is the proof that I contributed to the project.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I did the same thing. Eric still helped me 3D model a book. Yeah. And I just kind of put some covers on them, and that was...
Yes, absolutely.
It's forever. It's there. I immortalized my dog in the Rare Pizzas project.
Yeah.
By putting him on the cover of one of the books.
Yeah. And
I don't know if they'll ever get minted or show up or anything. But that's kind of part of the fun, all the randomization and all that stuff. But yeah. So with respect to kind of the structure of the DAO and the way that works and the things that it enables us to do, there's like this new framework in which people work together, and they do it maybe without the expectation of like future profit, which I don't think anybody does that type of thing for traditional employment.
Right.
So maybe that's a little bit new. That's maybe more along the lines of something that you'd expect from one of the old commune like co-op type operations.
Right.
But it seems smarter and it seems faster.
I think that if I were to be totally fair, I do think there are some times when people are value aligned on like the long-term financial prospects of a project.
Sure.
But I also do very much agree that I think, and it's something we heard repeatedly in the talks yesterday upstairs and as we did the gallery opener, that what this particular setup as it occurs with smart contracts allows for is for people to be value aligned. And so it's for people to like more vote with their hearts about where they're going to put their labor and where they're going to put their attention and their energy as a person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that alignment is the thing that that's the feature. That's the way that we can tell that a DAO is different, because in a corporation you have a profit motive.
Right.
You are obligated as part of the corporation to seek the profit of the investors who have put the money in to run the corporation. And with the DAO, it's not necessarily quite like that. People don't act the same. We've received some investments that, I don't think anybody ever would have, participated in that particular way in like a, everyone's just more altruistic somehow.
Yeah.
I feel like I note that just left and right. And I would argue that the reason that this happens is because of that, that radically aligned shared core mission.
Yeah.
And if you look at the 2004 book by Nick Bostrom, Superintelligence, and you try to take what he has there, he's got this system on a chip that's as intelligent as a human being, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the idea. But what if, instead of looking at that as something that just had to exist on a chip, what if the technology itself was the notion of something like a corporation or a DAO? I think that you can very quickly get to a point where it's possible to make the argument that the DAO is the same type of thing that a corporation is. Probably is useful for a different purpose, but at the same time, it's faster because of all of the alignment and because the nastiness of like that profit motive and the way that breaks up the alignment in the traditional, corporation. So
I'd say the like the yes and to that is also just the lack of permissioning that can occur. It's not every case, but like especially in Pizza DAO, I think that was a perfect example where we would often tell people just DAO it, and it was put in the work and just demonstrate your value, right?
Absolutely.
So that was I think the other major takeaway that I brought back to my professional life was just seeing the kind of performative nature of work, especially in distributed organizations where you don't know who you're working with really. All you can do is judge them on the output, and so for you to be recognized for having such talent, you have to make sure other people are aware of it.
Yeah, you gotta tell them.
Yeah, exactly. There is an aspect of like, I don't want to call it quite self-marketing, but you have to at least make sure that other humans are aware that you're doing the thing.
That's right. And it's hard to find collaborators if you don't, let people know that you're working on this or that.
Right.
The open nature of the way that the projects work is kind of a new form of accountability in a way too, because if you don't do it, it's not getting done.
Right.
So the interest of the organization is very much my interest when I think like I want to create like a Pizza DAO book and I want to sell some NFTs from it and use the money to buy people pizza.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same at the page DAO, but the thing that we're trying to give away there is fundamentally different. And so there's this really cool thing that can happen with DAOs with this alignment, because the end goal can be anything. Yeah. So that same notion from Nick Bostrom's superintelligence book, where the AI just makes paper clips, I believe was the example forever. Yeah. That same notion is present for these other superintelligences in a way that a for-profit, corporation could never have that, because the profit motive would get in the way and break up the alignment. Yeah. So with the DAO, you have an organization that is able to radically align people, put those people in touch in a new way that's trustless, and then you add the cryptocurrency in and have the governance going on, and boom, there's trustless payments now for this. Yeah. So these things assemble, they become very, very mission oriented. And what we see next, I think, in the market maybe is just exactly what the capabilities and functionalities are. There was an experiment last year, Osmosis launched. They started with a fair drop that was claimable that you couldn't buy into. And that was amazing, because what that does is that makes sure that the asset is something that is being received by the community in a way that's not monetary primarily as like the motivation. Right. And just as a 2-second breakdown on Osmosis, just to make sure people aren't thinking that we're talking about amoebas. The Osmosis is a cryptocurrency project. It generated its own token. That's OSMO, right? And what you're talking about there was to be able to receive the initial drop of the token. It was user behavior. Yeah, precisely. It was your on-chain reputation that was fundamental to that decision-making process of do you receive the Osmo or not. Right. Yeah. And so the initial drop got my attention, and then I witnessed. I wasn't necessarily that close of a part of the Osmo DAO. But seeing that built in real time, right before my eyes, with all of my money on the line, was just transformative. And so if there's a DAO that's directly responsible for like the launch of the page token in terms of inspiration, I have to tip my hat. I'll put it back on, Sonny Garwal. Yes, totally. Because that project is just the coolest thing I had ever seen at that point. Yeah. Well, consistently, I've seen Sonny as somebody who cares a lot about the ecosystem, who cares a lot about making forward progress, and is not out there for like the quick shill or the quick turnaround. Stu very much has his heart in the right place and wants to be building an awesome community. So, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, not only like not the quick shill, but like not the shill at all. It's funny. The ethos in Cosmos is it's so creator centric and it's so code centric that like the marketing just seems to kind of fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
But every nerd like me that reads about this stuff and sees like the space metaphor that's kind of baked in, and then
that's right,
learns about fault tolerance and stuff, just kind of gets pulled in, it seems.
Totally. Yeah. So when I want to kind of backtrack a little bit and kind of talk more about PageDAO and the evolution of PageDAO.
Sure.
And I think we were talking a lot about kind of like the permissionless nature of DAOs and also how you just DAO it, right?
Just DAO it.
Did you start off as a cryptocurrency genius who totally knew how to like make a DAO out of thin air?
I certainly did not.
So maybe you could tell me more about that whole process. Like, what did you learn, and especially like some of the early failings and
Sure.
The painful learnings, just as well as the successful learnings.
Sure. So the first kind of big issue that we ran into was creating the marketplace. To back up just a little bit, it was sure a lot of fun hanging out and getting to know you really well from our separate locations during COVID.
Yeah. I think you were still living up in Lubbock at that time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I stayed up there for a while, and it was not that much fun. Fortunately, I don't live there
It gave you plenty
anymore.
of time to focus on crypto.
Yeah. Oh, man, for sure. But, so I mean, in terms of like where we started, it was very much not like set up. It was not there was no roadmap. So we did the MediaTek Accelerator kind of alongside the Pizza DAO, and like got the full technology experience from kind of both sides, as it were. And,
so MediaTek
and
is a more traditional like venture capital accelerator.
Correct.
That's meant to be built around media companies, right?
Exactly.
Web2 typical media companies. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of different things that they're very good at. But the thing was that the thing that I was trying to do seemed like a media technology fit,
right?
But it didn't quite fit the mold that they were looking for, you know. And so with Rare Pizzas, the opposite was true. There was no mold, it was just complete chaos, and everybody was trying to build the coolest stuff, and we were all so
there was
excited.
very often no adults in the room on that one.
Very frequently no adults, and I'm frequently not an adult myself, but the thing with it was that it was this creative, fun, can we do X, type exploration.
Yes.
And the relationships that were formed during that, I mean, some of my best friends have, been from the Pizza DAO, I mean, and I invite all my friends to the Pizza DAO because I think it's the coolest thing, I mean, it's like a charity project that buys people pizza.
And it continues to be a massively open door where if anybody wanted to learn about crypto and just didn't know where to start,
exactly,
you're gonna find some pretty darn good humans in there.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Well, and the missions that they've created in the Discord now are super cool. So like, even if you're just like the lowliest pizza noob, you can go in there and get a mission and kind of learn your way.
Yeah.
And I really think that that's the way that people ought to be starting to learn how to develop software now. It needs to be this social thing. There needs to be some amount of accountability, and we need to put the creativity, kind of back into like that part of the education, because I feel like in a lot of situations, I kind of watch somebody, try to teach, how to do it, and it's like, okay, yeah, those are the steps, but we don't understand why, and we don't know how it works, and because anyway.
There was one thing I was learning about recently was this kind of like professional development path that people go on, where you start off with unconscious incompetence, where you don't know or you don't know, and then you have conscious incompetence, where it's like you don't know stuff, and that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Right. After that, you kind of move into a conscious competence, where you've got a handle on things and you've got it kind of more or less figured out. And then you move into unconscious competence, which is also terrifying, where it's like what you're doing, but you have no idea how to teach it to somebody else. But it's just like your knife is too sharp at that point, and you have no idea how to teach somebody else how to sharpen their knife.
That's right.
Yeah,
no, absolutely, man. Yeah.
So, when it came to PageDAO, I feel like that was a case where there's a certain attitude that's required, and it's, as you were in the unconscious incompetence phase, moving into, conscious incompetence, I can imagine, especially in your position, as you're trying to lead things and keep interest up, and yet there's these failings, where like the marketplace didn't take off right away. You
actually, I should probably elaborate on the marketplace. I started to tell that story, but I didn't. so I think in like February or something, we decided we wanted to build a marketplace, and we got to like June or July, and we had raised like a little bit of money, and we wanted to go just gung ho and build this thing, And so we picked up one code base and built on it, and we built a marketplace, and it's there. And it wasn't good enough. It didn't work quite right, So we built another marketplace in maybe July of 2021.
Right.
And then we built the third one, I believe, in August of 2021. And so these things are just coming and going, and we keep, throwing it away. It's like we draw the Mona Lisa, and then we crumple it up and we throw it in the trash over and over and over. And we tried to partner with two different, I believe, companies that already had functional marketplaces, and both of those fell through. So it was just the most insane comedy of errors that you ever saw. We launched a cryptocurrency that was designed to be a token that we would sell the books for on the market.
Right.
And there was no market. And so for 6 months, we just kind of continued down this path trying to get it right. Because you can build something bad and release it and have people love it anyway if it's like a really creative thing. But if it's a really functional thing and it doesn't work, that's not the right type of thing to release early and let be bad,
Right.
So
right. But there was I think two major lessons out of that. One is the idea of do it anyway.
Yeah.
Even if you don't think it's going to be good.
Because you're learning.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're learning. And I think the other really important thing is this lesson in perseverance.
Don't stop. Right?
Exactly.
Never give up.
It's like that's three different marketplaces. At any point in time, you could have said, man, it is really hot this summer. I'm tired. I want to go to Disneyland. Like, I need a break. And yet you kept your head down and you're like, no, I'm going to keep on building. Like the team, let's stick with it. Let's keep on building.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a radical lesson for a lot of people is that I think some folks would kind of like quit earlier.
Yeah.
And yet with this perseverance, you're still here.
You get there, yeah. You eventually get there. That's the thing. And I mean, it's been so gnarly at the conference, just getting to meet all of the different founders from all the Cosmos projects, the founders from Cent, the founders from everywhere. Everybody's in town this week, and it's just been the most exciting thing to see what everybody's working on, because some of the tools that are coming are just, they're so next level. I mean, like we're about to all have superpowers, and nobody even knows it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's unfortunate that's 105 degrees outside in Austin, Texas right now.
Feels like it's almost that hot in here.
But really, really great to have, exactly as you said, so many friends and fellow founders and people who are just doing these radical experiments all coming to one place.
Well, and just trading notes.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is so open. I mean, if we were trying to do this in Silicon Valley in the year 2000 or 98 or whenever this tech boom was, everybody would be in different rooms and they'd all be trying to not let each other know what they were up to and stuff. And like, if you have an idea in Web3, you just take it out there and you just put it on the table, and the good things happen if people like it.
Absolutely. So case in point, I'm really reminded in that what you said there about like this one movie called The Pirates of Silicon Valley, and it was telling the early story of Apple and Windows, like and Microsoft, and how they, Apple and Microsoft both went to Xerox PARC and learned about how Xerox PARC was doing things, and then kind of stole the secret sauce. And they're like, wait a second, you could have a nice UI on these computers that makes them like more usable, and that's how personal computers can work, so people don't have to like type in or like read in data sheets and stuff. And I was like, yeah, you can totally do that. And like, so then you get Apple and Windows OS, right? And that's really what blew up the personal computing market. And arguably why we're at today is because personal computers became a thing and gave people the power to experiment with computing in their own homes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And yet I think here we have almost the opposite ideology, where we're like, no, let's just openly tell each other about how we do everything. Let's put all the software out there for free and let us all learn together. And yet that's still working too. That's really weird how that works out.
Yeah, it's amazing. I really do feel like we're at the resurgence of the free open source software movement, and I mean, wow, like it feels good.
Yeah,
it feels really good.
Totally. Yeah, it's really this interesting thing where like there's not necessarily like a strong expectation of reciprocity, or like how are you like dealing me in or cutting me in on your deal, but it's a reciprocity of knowledge where it's like if I know anything, I'll tell you, and if you know anything, you'll tell me. But otherwise, like, there's no expectation of like, oh, well, you're going to steal my idea or you're going to run off and like, you know, it's just more like all ships rise with the tide.
That's right.
And let's all keep on building.
Yeah, and help each other as much as we can, right? There's this weird phenomenon that I think is maybe occurring where we're creating like a different kind of network between people. You know, instead of like, you know, like our isolated little city, you know, against yours or whatever the deal was. Now it's more just like one big mesh network, you know, and so I think there's some really interesting things that can happen here because, you know, the way the information flows across that network is public, so we can observe it, so we can, you know, build really cool analytics and stuff for it, which I've already seen some founders doing that I didn't know about before this week, so that's cool. But also the way that it impacts behavior, I think, is just going to be extremely sophisticated, and I think that the economy is going to become a much better approximation of like not only the values, but like you know, the ethos and like the fun of people, you know, just in general. Like it's going to be a more appropriate expression of the human will moving forward, because we're doing better things now.
I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier about the notion of equity and how value is extracted from systems. And when we look at that, it seems to somehow feed into zero-sum mentalities, where these investors need to get some, but in that process, everybody else has to not. Right? And that's not to knock on VC, because they've opened a lot of doors and allowed for a lot of experiments to occur. But like when that's the only method of funding, it seems to perpetuate that kind of, you know, way of thinking about how to do business, and then ultimately how those businesses and those cultures operate. And what I've seen in crypto space, and tell me if you've seen differently, but like I think we're moving away from zero sum and moving toward positive sum. You know, the one thing that I'm noticing very often, especially having recently been in the staking and validator ecosystem, is you don't want to have a monopoly in that space. You actually want other strong players, because if you are the one validator service and you take over 33% of the network, you're actually causing the network to be insecure. You're becoming the single point of failure. So instead of having a competition, it's absolutely a co-opetition. You need to have those other strong players in there. Like, yes, you don't want any one of them to take over, and yes, you need to like healthily compete. But at the same time, you need to make sure that you yourself are also not eating up too much of the network.
Absolutely.
You know?
Well, and just having to kind of take that into consideration, you know, at the fundamental level of this technology is, I mean, that's revolutionary. Like, we've never had a network that had a conscience before. You know, but like, that's literally what this is. Like, you know, it would feel bad because you would lose all your money. That's why. But, you know, the bad feeling is if I take too much of the network, or if I, you know, don't get enough people in, or like if there's not enough, you know, to go around, because I think what's happening is that people are naturally looking more towards, you know, flows and such, and there's less of like this accumulative like sort of mentality that leads to like all the hoarding and stuff, you know. But I obviously would like to have as much crypto as I could.
You know, so say we all, for sure. Before we bail here, I wanted to ask a little bit of what's next for the Page DAO. Where do you see things going over like the next, like, you know, 3 to 6 months?
Okay, so there's a lot. I can honestly say that, but
is it going to be another marketplace?
It's in the works, oddly enough. We're not building it, fortunately. But yeah, we're working on getting books to Stargaze, which ought to be a really big deal. But we're not just trying to get books to Stargaze, and this may take longer, it may not. It's really hard for me to kind of guess, but the thing that we're trying to create right now is an interchain minter, where you can have your membership token on any blockchain that's supported, and you can mint to any blockchain that's supported. And so there's going to be an L1 that's going to be a Cosmos SDK app chain, which we're hoping to get some Well, I don't know. We're thinking about using the new Stargaze shared security to build, and then kind of spin up to validators and such of our own from there.
Nice.
And so yeah, I mean, like this you win, I win type of thing is baked in like at the institutional level, like from the very beginning with like a lot of these new chains. And so it's just the streets are not as rough as they were in Ethereum land when we kind of first started. And
yeah. Totally.
Yeah, but so big time, crazy integration across. We want to go to all of the EVMs that are I guess relevant or germane, and the amount of work to apply this to a new tech stack, a new blockchain, is relatively minimal. A lot of things are really pretty interoperable across everything, and so just being kind of like finally through the slog in the mud of not understanding what any of this stuff was or how it worked or how to manipulate it, we're finally kind of to the point where, okay, now we have like that high level understanding, and we're going to be able to build some stuff that is just going to blow everybody's mind. Like, I say that with complete confidence. I really feel that good about kind of what we're cooking up.
One thing I wanted to reiterate right before we kind of close it off here is 2 years ago, I don't think you would have called yourself any kind of like blockchain developer. Am I right?
Yes, I would not have called myself any kind of developer at all.
Yeah.
I was a non-technical person,
right?
In my mind.
much more focused on writing than on building. And
exactly.
Yet here you are. You now have this entire community, and you're building out this whole new space. And PageDAO is active in Token Smart. Shout out Jimmy.
Oh yeah, shout out Jimmy.
Right. And I think that this is it's just absolutely wild to see again the permissionless nature of this, and how if you can have that perseverance to keep on pushing, to keep on making mistakes, that you can make something happen, and you can find your people who want to share that journey with you. They're going to show up. You have to keep putting that signal out there, but they're going to show up.
Yep, that's right. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, it all depends, I guess, on the kind of core goal that you're trying to radically align everybody towards.
Yeah. And
some people are into it, some people are not so into it. It's really easy because if somebody's not that into it, they just go find something they are that into,
That's right.
And so yeah, we've grown the community to a little bit over 1,700, I think, in Discord now, which is not huge.
That's still absolutely massive versus where it started a year ago.
Yes, absolutely. We do anticipate a lot more growth to come too, because we're mostly riders in there. So, but the thing is that we've at this point done a little bit over half an ETH, and I believe over 80 NFT books have been minted to the Polygon blockchain using the minter. So I would call it a successful beta test, and it seems that the market is ready. And I mean, to shortly answer the question of what are we doing over the next 3 to 6 months, scaling. That is the goal. We want to scale the NFT book minter to different chains, different users, different communities, different purposes. If somebody wants to use the minter, if they want a carbon copy clone of the minter to use for some other nefarious or not nefarious purpose, I don't know why I said that, but yeah. So I mean, if they want to use the minter to do whatever their thing is, then we're working with people to do that. We're still doing Pass the Pin all the time, and the audience is, great at Token Smart. A lot of really awesome stuff going on over there as well. But yeah, I mean, it kind of overwhelms me to think about. It's going to be a lot of work.
Totally, but it's going to happen. Look at how far you come.
Exactly. The journey of 1,000 steps, 1,000 miles starts with a single step.
Exactly right. Well, hopefully we'll see you a few steps further down the line here and get you back down in the podcast studio for another recording.
Hey, awesome. This has been great, Alex. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.